From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
You know what?
What?
I've been thinking about this Sentinel system.
Yeah. Tell me about the Sentinel system.
So what I was thinking was we have the one car that's got the aim dash that's slowing us down. Because installing the aim dash is actually, it probably is easy, but it's quite hard the first time. And we haven't figured that out yet. The Sentinel system is really easy to set up. So what I was thinking was, why don't we put it in the Lemons car? And we'll worry about the aim data information separately. And we'll kind of break it down into a project. Because then we'd have the motorsports video system that we really, really want, and we'd be able to stream it. We just won't have the data inside, but we have the data outside, so we can combine them later. But I think that's a really good solution.
So what does this Sentinel system do?
Well, if it had the aim data, it would have all the data on the screen, and you could see all their telemetry and everything live. But we'd be able to not only record it for viewing after the race, but we could actually watch our car during the race.
Ooh, like on the monitor and everything?
On a monitor, if you were at home and I was at a track, or if you were at the track and I was at home, depends on who gets the little short straw, but we'd be able to watch each other.
It's something I've always wanted to do.
And you know what? If you're driving, you know what you can do on the Sentinel system?
What's that?
You can communicate to me with your hands, and I can't do a thing about it.
Even better.
So, if you need to give a wave or a Jersey wave, whatever you need, we could save it and see it on the screen. And then you can have up to 3 different cameras, and it'll have picture in picture. You'll have the basic main shot out the front window, and then 2 cameras where you put them wherever you want. One could be on the driver, or one could be on the rear view. It's kind of cool.
Then we can upload it onto YouTube.
We could bore millions of people on YouTube.
I love it.
All right. Very well. You know what the only downside I see about this?
What?
Your mom and my mom are going to be panic stricken the entire weekend watching this thing to see if everything's going well.
This is true.
We probably shouldn't tell them.
I like the idea of having a Sentinel.
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily we have maybe 2. Depends on how things go. We're going to try. All right. That sounds like a plan. That's the project. We got to get that ready for the next race.
Sounds great.
All right. Very well. Thank you, ma'am.
Dominating with Dawson.
I'd like to welcome to everybody with Dominating with Dawson with no Dawson. We do these every now and then when we have guests who come on and are willing to play our silly little games. And Ben's occupied.
What do you call it? Jamming with Jeremy.
Jamming with Jeremy?
Oh.
Okay. Making time with
Hauling
mental.
Hauling with Hall.
Making time with mental.
I'm liking this mental.
And V is for victory.
Yes. Victory with Vicky.
So we have a question that was written in that we wanted to talk to everybody about. And I think this term, I heard it first on another podcast. I think it was the Lizard Brain podcast with Tom O'Gorman and DJ Alessandrini, one of the better ones that's come out recently. Awesome podcast. Definitely worth listening to. Both of them can drive the wheels off a car. And they were talking about a aspect that we've always referred to as double sucking. And it's whenever
you
there's
explain
a problem.
That, Bill.
Yeah, well, yes, because 1 sucking is not enough. So 2 is always better. So what it is when you've got the choice of you go out and things aren't going well, there's a certain aspect that is due to the driver, and there's a certain aspect that's due to the car. We, always being in training, have always assumed up until a point that it was us doing something wrong. And perhaps some of these times it may have been a higher percentage that was the car. So we wanted to talk about, how do you know which one to work on? And it's going to change with time and change with car and change with people. I get all that. But since I have 3 intellectual car driving aficionados with me, I thought I'd ask.
All right. Well,
but they're not here. So can one of you talk?
That's a wrap.
Our chosen medium of racing, the car quite often sucks. Mm-hmm. And the car sucks sometimes on purpose. And you've not built it to be fast, you've built it to last. So I'll start with, if the driver is insisting on making it do something that it can't, then it's the driver. If they're trying to, literally, well, I'm stomping on the gas and trying to, bring the rear end around, and you're like, it's a neon, so stop with that. You're sucking. The easiest part is it a mechanical thing on the car? And I bring this up because I came to wheel racing through Lemons. I'd autocrossed, I'd done track days, and I'd always done that, in good, quick, well-prepared cars, but Lemons, often the car's just crap. And I just kept learning to drive around things. And when I started racing with NASA and some of the other organizations, I've gotten out of the car and I've handed it off, and the driver that immediately goes, why did you put up with this? And I go, what? I raced a boat once. So I'm used to adapting to a vehicle, and like, okay, well, it clearly doesn't like to do this. So I started doing that to work around it. And when I really should have just brought the car to the pits and gotten whatever it was fixed.
So let me go into that a little bit more, where you had just said about it could potentially be the car, right? Let's say you have a car that you're not very familiar with yet. You've just got done building it. You've raced it, a race or two.
You're going to arrive and drive.
You're learning the car, right? Well, one good thing that I always like to do is, hey, Mental, you have a lot of experience in these cars. Can you take this out on track and drive it for me and see what you think about it? And let me know if there's something that maybe is wrong. I'm experiencing this. I don't think it's me. Could you take it out on track and see if you're experiencing the same thing, or maybe what it is and we can fix it? Right? Like something as simple as an alignment could make a car suck terribly on a track.
We've never had a problem with alignment, Jeremy. I don't know what you're talking about.
I only say that because I'm bringing that up as something that was experienced this year.
Yeah, true. The NASA team that I run with, you guys had Sam Smith on a while back.
Yep.
And Sam, basically step one for that team is always put Sam in the car, because Sam will go out there and tell you everything's wrong with the car. It's doing, and he doesn't try to fix it. He's like, it's bouncing too much here. I'm getting this in this corner, in this corner, in this corner. And then he'll build the baseline when we go out on that one. But sometimes, if they don't have the crap can background, they'll get a little picky. And I distinctly remember at Road Atlanta eons ago, I was racing in AR in a Miata, and the mechanic, they were having, I don't know specifically what it was. It basically came down to, we could either have brake lights or ABS. And this is practice day, and the whole team was seriously considering putting the car on the trailer. And the look that Jeremy just gave, that was my exact reaction. And I looked at them and said, are you out of your friggin' mind? And they're like, what? I'm like, turn off the ABS, learn a threshold brake, for God's sakes, don't race the car. So sometimes people with a lot of experience, they do get a little kind of coddled if they're not used to being a crap can. So, understanding the background of the driver as well, when they're like, oh, well, your car's not doing this. Yeah, no kidding. It's a 1973 Chrysler Cordoba. Duh.
With rich Corinthian leather.
Exactly. Of course it's not doing that. Back off the throttle and just let it kind of float through the
It's
corners.
not supposed to anymore.
So when you're thinking the car doesn't do that, that means that you're the part that is sucking.
Miss Vicky,
So
what do you think?
I'm thinking about the situation about when you have an inexperienced driver with a car that is too much. What about those instances?
I think it's a little different. I mean, so it is a problem. We just had a side discussion about it, 100%. But I think that wasn't where I was trying to get this one to go to. So if you don't mind, I'm going to steer off a little bit and say you were a brand new driver.
Okay.
Right? And you were out. Let's go to the infamous video that Vicky despises that I have up on our podcast.
I don't despise it. I just look at it as a big learning experience.
So just in case mental isn't fully up to speed, I know Jeremy is. We actually have video from Vicky's first ever stint on our YouTube channel, and
when the camera worked,
and you see that her hand position is at 12 and shifter, and you see
she's cruising.
She is.
She's looking good.
She's
what's
chilling.
going on? Yeah.
That's right. She's getting.
I just needed a cup holder with a coffee in it.
That's right. That's right. Luckily, there was no school buses on the track at the time, so she didn't have to slow down. But when you're early in your driving career, and this doesn't matter if you're early in your driving career as a physical human or when you're early in your driving career on track, because Vicky had driven for many, many years. Driving on track is different. And sometimes you have difficulty, and this is where I was hoping the question would go, but I asked the wrong question, I guess, is how can you tell? What can you try to glean from what you're seeing when you're on track when you're early in your career to try and say, hey, I might not be the sole reason for sucking. It may be the car. And what are some of the indicators that you could do that says, hey, it is the driver, or hey, it is the car, or something to give somebody a path forward to improve? Because that's what we care about, the training part.
Yeah, sometimes it definitely is the car, for sure. But also, just by blurting that out, that first thing is going to come as a cop out. It's not my driving, it's the car. But sometimes it actually is the car. And an example is that I don't remember if you guys do remember, we had to go do, was it, what's the one with the corkscrew?
Laguna
Seca.
That was one of the examples. It was evil.
That car was evil.
Mm-hmm.
That was an evil car. And after the person that had that car took that car apart, he also realized that what we were trying to explain to him what it was. Again, I was a very inexperienced driver at the time, but the O-rings that were in, what were they?
Not O-rings.
What were they there? They were the bushings. The bushings looked like they were proper, but they were so worn out that they were oblong in the suspension to where it felt, I would referring that car to a freaking pit bull because it was just so squirrely. Now for an experienced driver, yes, it was probably something that you could just probably manage or something like that. I found that car to be very, very difficult to drive.
Well, mental, I think you had a little trouble with that car as well. I mean, it wasn't something that caused you to hit a wall, but I mean,
no, but we did. We were fighting that car, and we were actually all three trying to be very cognizant. And we're like, hey, we don't want to break the car. It's doing these things, and he just kept saying, "Send it, don't care.
Well,
I
right,
really don't
right.
care. I really don't care. So we'll go back to the fundamentals because you want to give a new driver a path forward. Is it you or is it the car? Can the car do a basic thing? Go
Right.
through a corner predictably. If in
Mhm.
the middle of the corner, it wiggles, it does something, and it doesn't do it, you can't repeat it at will. If it's random or acceleration, it stumbles here, but it doesn't stumble there, or you can't get a smooth acceleration or
Right.
the brakes, then you start looking at it's a problem with the car. We famously diagnose, we learned to early diagnose wheel bearing failure on a Honda if you have to double pump the brakes into every corner after a high speed straight. That is because the wheel bearings are going, the wheel is wobbling imperceivably through the steering wheel, but it's backing the pad off. And your first push on the brake pedal has to bring the pads into contact. And then your second one is the one that applies the friction. And we had to learn that the hard way when we noticed the wheel bearing was going, but we were all having the same experience. So there's another one. If more than one driver is having the same mechanical experience, it's the car.
Mhm.
If it's just one driver, and this is where ego does get into it, why are you the only one with this problem? And then sometimes the arrogant answer is because I'm the only one going fast. You may have to go to the answers on that one. You got something. Go ahead, Jeremy. Lean in, lean in.
No. I was going to say somebody's name, but I'll leave that.
No.
But yeah,
Wow,
it's
Jeremy calling him out.
yeah. So if everyone's having it, it's definitely the car. If only you're doing it, it's you. And let's assume you're the only one going fast enough. Well, then it comes back to you're trying to make the car do something it's not supposed to do. And that might
Yes.
be a mechanical failure of the car that needs to be addressed in future. But if you're so far ahead of the pace of every one of the teammates that you're making the car create a problem that no one else has created right now for this race, it's you.
Correct. Communication, right? That's the big thing. If
Mhm.
you feel that something like Mental's just saying, if you feel that the car is doing something that is wrong, talk to your teammates, talk to the other drivers, communicate about it. Maybe it's you, maybe it's the car. If everybody's sensing it, then obviously it's the car. If nobody has sensed it yet and you bring it up and somebody else gets back in the car and they feel it too, maybe it's the car.
Mhm. That's, you know what though, that's a very, very difficult thing for a brand new driver to do.
It is. And it just like racing is a new difficult thing for a new driver to do. You got to practice.
Yeah. But yeah, and it, I know for just in general, it takes a person a couple years just to feel the sense of a car, a new driver, to feel the car, not just drive the car.
This brings us to Jeremy's favorite part of the podcast. The correct answer to this question.
Love it. It's my favorite part of every podcast.
It is. I have to do it every time you come on. It's just too much fun not to. The correct answer is if you're a new driver and you're out on the track and you're learning, it's always you. You're not, and I'm not trying to insult you at all. There's things you're doing that aren't right. However, the car can add to that and make it more difficult, but it's always you. As you grow as a driver, your skills will improve. You will hopefully get rid of bad habits. You will gain more skills. You will become a better driver. And then you start to wonder. The hard part is really, to me, as you're growing as a driver, if that's the only car you've ever driven, it's difficult to delineate between, is it me or is it the car, or is it because it's a front wheel drive car and that's what front wheel drive cars do, which drives me batty, or if it's because it's a rear wheel drive car and on this track rear wheel drive cars aren't, it's a front wheel drive car, or I don't have enough power or whatever. The odds are the earlier in your career you are, the more likely it is to be the driver. So look there first. However, try to get, like, I think Jeremy had a really good plan. Try and get somebody who's familiar with that car, ideally familiar with that particular car, which is why we've had Mental jump in our car several times, because we bought cars from Mental. And we have Chris driving our car.
No. You
Mental's
bought cars
team.
from Three Puddle Mafia.
Mental's team. Yes.
If you'd have bought
I
any
never sold
car, if
anything.
you'd have bought a race car from me, we wouldn't be friends.
Yeah, that's
You'd
probably
hate
true.
you guys would hate me so much.
That's probably true. Speaking of race cars that we need to talk about, post podcast. So it's likely you as a driver, and that's not to be insulting. That's just, when Vicky first started, when I first started, maybe even when Mental and Jeremy
but likely
first
is not 100% because I've seen
correct
new drivers refuse to acknowledge there's a problem with a car and keep driving with something that could have been fixed until literally the wheel falls off of it.
Indeed, and
Right.
that's the hardest part. Is as you're progressing, the odds are more and more likely that it could be something in the car, or the car could not match what you do, because everybody has their different proclivities and preferences. And I like to drive a whatever type of car, and Jeremy may like to drive a different type of car. So those are the things that we need to worry about. Jeremy,
If at any point, especially as a new driver, you feel that there might be something going on and it's not you, communicate, ask questions.
And to that end, and this is one of everyone I wrote, it's a pet peeve of anyone who's built a car, you trying to diagnose the car. Don't diagnose the car. It is making this noise on turn 3 and turn 7, which is why it's always good to have a track map inside the car if you don't know that. And it's under these conditions. And let the person who built the car, while you're driving it through the radio, so always test your radios, start trying to talk you through it. And then they'll tell you. And then, and you can alleviate your conscience if it's you or if it's the car. It might be, okay, we're going to need you to dial it down, 4 miles an hour into those 2 corners, or it's bring it in.
Right.
And you, if you're a new driver or it's not your team and these aren't your people and you met them online, don't be afraid to just speak up, even if it's nothing. And one of the funniest things ever is I was driving the BMW and I was getting some brake wobble. It was Hamza's BMW. And I was like, guys, it's doing it in these corners, these corners, these corners. And they sat and chatted. And finally, they came back and said, you're being too wussy on the brakes. Just go deeper into the corner and jam on there. And they were right. I was trying to take care of the car. I was trying to be gentle to it. And I just needed to push it a little bit deeper into the corner.
At the same time, though, you need to be comfortable with being able to make the decision. If you think it's a safety issue, park it.
Always.
Even if you're wrong.
1000%.
Because at worst, you risk losing 10, 15, 20 laps while your team, goes through and checks out the car. Worst case, you're not just ruining your day, you're ruining another team's day.
And the car. And their health.
Or 2.
And their budget. So.
All of the above.
All of them. Yeah. So. It's tricky to tell from the car to the driver, I think. It's still, even at, I'm not saying I'm at my level, but at my level, I still have trouble sometimes. Is it me or the car? And one of the things that drove me crazy, very few things bothered me during my HBD progression, was some of the instructors wanted you to do the exact same thing every single lap, every single turn, every single day. And you don't learn how to try different things in your car that way to see if, wow, it was me. I was doing that turn wrong. Right. There's always the joke about the Mustang line, the Porsche line, the Miata line. Sometimes you got to drive it the Miata line. Sometimes you got to drive it the Porsche line. Sometimes you got to drive it, who cares what the names are, but trying a turn with a different approach, or should I go in even deeper and brake harder? Should I brake slower and keep my car plane flatter? There's things you can do, and there's things you'll learn to do to alleviate if it is the car, or find out that the car is fine if I just do this. So what was the problem? It was me. And those are things you learn with some time.
Good one.
The best thing to do on the double sucking to make sure that you're not the part that is sucking is leave your ego at the front gate when entering the track.
And you know why this was called double sucking? Because at the skill levels that we are and the cars we drive, it's always double sucking. It's just what percent varies from time to time. So
for all the advice that we came out of this one, I'm going to go with Jeremy had the most solid. Just communicate early, communicate often, ask questions, ask about the car. And then while you're on the radio, just start yapping away as often as possible.
Spoken like a true podcast host. Mental. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Miss Vicky. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great night.